Hi, it's the dudes here, looking at Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I'm doing the intro today for the Ranger, because I was just playing one. Let's start with the most important thing, the pictures. On old page 41, it depicts the three new Ranger archetypes that you can choose from. They have an Elven Horizon Walker,
Human monster slayer.
and it looks like a dwarf Gloom Stalker.
Yeah, if that's not a dwarf, I don't know what it is.
Maybe just a burly halfling.
Ooh.
And it is a female dwarf as well. I like that Dungeons and Dragons no longer depict their female dwarves with beards.
So, the Ranger, it gives you the same stuff as before with all the other previous classes. The, background information. They give you the view of the world, so how your Ranger sees the world, homeland, sworn enemy, your feelings on those things. Because in the core book, Rangers, they kind of can easily be overlooked as to what's their driving force in the D&D world, because you're this person who's like a huntsman who shoots stuff, yet you like nature. So it's kind of like a druid. It's like, unless you really make your character, for the newer characters out there, that can kind of be confusing. So this just, again, flushes out more of the background.
Yeah, and the Ranger stuff. Anything that it can tell you more about the Ranger to make the Ranger more than just the bow and arrow guy is good.
Yeah. So they start with the Gloom Stalker, which had me confused. I thought I was reading a rogue archetype for a little while.
Yeah.
It's neat. I like it. It's just, it wasn't what I was expecting.
With it depicted with a dwarf as its, iconic, if you will, I guess I can see that, because you have scouts and, rangery types that are patrolling the Underdark, and
sure,
that's what the Gloom Stalker is. They get some spells, something that I like. All three of these get spells, which I think was absent from the couple in the Player's Handbook. The ones in the Player's Handbook were a lot more martial. These are sort of a lot more balanced. And they just add spells to your spell list. They don't give you the option to use them on command or anything like that. But you get Disguise Self, Rope Trick, Fear, Greater Invisibility, which is a fantastic spell.
Yes.
And Seeming, which none of those you get as a Ranger usually. So it's nice always to broaden your spell list and have more options to do stuff.
Yeah, and just looking at some of their abilities, their third level abilities are pretty strong. You get to add your wisdom modifier to your initiative as well as your dex, so it just gives you an extra potentially +2, +3 to, and especially if you're a ranger, then it might even be up to a +4 if you're that kind of weird ranger who rolled all 18s for his stats.
Well, it's their casting stat. If you want to focus a little more in casting, you might have a high wisdom.
Yeah, and then their umbral sight, which allows them to gain dark vision to up to 60 feet. If you already have dark vision as a race, you get an extra 30 feet of it. So dark vision is one of those things where if you don't have it, you really wish you did. So
yeah, that's very true, especially when the other people are like, oh, what's that over there? And you're like, where's my torch?
Dude, where's my torch?
And yeah, I mean, dark vision definitely makes sense for the Gloom Stalker, because you can't be down in the depths in the dark without being able to see. Don't forget about the other part about the Dread Ambusher. The cooler part about the Dread Ambusher, in my opinion, is that you get an extra weapon attack. Or not a weapon attack, you get... Oh yeah, you do get an additional weapon attack that deals additional damage on your first turn of combat. So you get that at 3, at 5 you get extra attack. So on your opening salvo could potentially be 3 attacks, which at level 5, pretty solid.
Right, and then at level 11, they get a really cool ability, which is Stalker's Fury, or Flurry, not Fury. Fury makes more sense, though. When you miss with an attack, you get to just immediately make another attack. Just as part of that attack action. So it's not even a bonus action, so it can't be canceled by anything that cancels bonus actions. It's just, oh, I missed, okay, here I go again.
And as a ranger, you want to hit because you do damage. That's your job.
Damage good.
In the party, you just want to do damage. At level 7, you get Iron Mind, where you get Wisdom saving throw proficiency, which again, if you're a Gloom Stalker, you probably want to have a little bit higher Wisdom than you do as a typical ranger.
True. The last ability you get at 15, so they don't get that super high level, like 17th level ability, but you get to like embellish yourself in shadow, and then you get advantage to your rolls, your attack rolls, and they get disadvantage. So it's just kind of a nice little boon. All in all, they get it seems like they curve earlier, and then they just stay kind of consistent later.
Mm-hmm.
So like they don't have like a flashy finish, but they're just consistent and strong throughout.
Yeah, it's more thematic. I mean, it almost feels like the old Shadow Dancer prestige class in a way. I mean, without all that extra shadow stuff, just the theme of like the darkness, and I mean the shadowy dodge, you can cover yourself in shadows and whatnot, but they're definitely more about like stealth than most of your other ranger conclaves here.
Which brings us right to the next one, Horizon Walker.
Another advanced class formerly, except this time it doesn't suck.
Yeah, I like the look of it. It's very, again, it seems like all 3 of the ranger classes are very thematic, and not just like thematic, like, oh, they made that class, so if you want to make it, you can. You know, it's not going to be very good, but you can. No, all 3 of these like kind of have a niche role which you can fill, and then they also don't like leave you high and dry once you perform that thing. So the Horizon Walker kind of lets you like step in and out of reality, and step in the plane or become ethereal to do in between your attacks or your moves during combat at higher levels, which is really neat.
Yeah, it's really cool. Their spells, their bonus spells that they get sort of reflect that. In order, they get Protection from Evil and Good, Misty Step, which is a great low-level spell. Haste is fantastic, always has been.
Super good spell.
Banishment, super good. Teleportation Circle is a great quick out for you and your whole party if you need to quickly jump away. I've referenced my Curse of Strahd campaign before, and I know that we always had a teleportation circle placed in a strategic location outside of Castle Ravenloft for when we would get overwhelmed, and that saved us on countless amounts of times. So that is a great one to add to your repertoire, even though you gotta wait till level 17 to get it.
Right. They do get what's called the Planar Warrior, so this is kind of their like level 3 ability, to where they just get an extra d8 to their first attack that applies not only the extra d8, but they also get to apply it as force damage, and force damage is pretty hard to negate, so
Yes.
it's kind of nifty.
Yeah, and it scales. So once you hit 11th level, that force damage is going to increase to 2d8. Their other level 3 ability is Detect Portal, which is a lot more situational. You're going to want to do that force damage all the time. Detecting a portal to another plane would be situationally good, depending on the type of game you're playing.
Yeah.
I know I have never been in a situation in my like role-playing career that I've ever needed to discover a portal to another plane, but not saying that it can't happen, because planar travel is a very prevalent thing, just not something that I've really dealt with.
Yeah, and like I said, the Horizon Walker, the idea is that they travel from plane to plane doing their rangery goodness or their rangery evilness as they go along. So for the Horizon Walker, it makes sense for them to kind of sniff out a portal, like, oh, there's a portal over here. So I like it. I think it's
Yeah, you get Ethereal Step at 7th level. You can cast the Etherealness spell as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. It only lasts until the end of your current turn, but it's still a really solid way to kind of get you out of danger, take a little less damage than you would normally. Because that's like the one weakness of a ranger is he's usually up in the fight, but he's not as hardy as the paladin or the fighter.
Yeah. Then at 11th level, they get Distance Strike, which I think Distance Strike is really cool. When you make an attack, after you make an attack, you can teleport up to 10 feet to a location you can see to make an additional attack. And then if you attack 2 different targets with both your attacks, you can teleport again to attack a third person. So essentially, if you can get behind the front line and start attacking archers, you can hit one, teleport behind another one, hit another one, and then teleport again and hit another one. So it's just like, very flourishy, very,
It's very Nightcrawler-esque.
Yes, it reminds me of the Lord of the Rings, new Lord of the Rings video game where the Wraith is in you and you can like teleport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor. That's like, or Shadow of War is the newest one.
Right.
It reminds me of that, to where you're jumping around behind these guys, cutting their heads off, and then jumping again and doing it again. That was a really fun part of that game.
Yeah, that was a good game. But we're not going to get off on a tangent about that. 15th level, all of these different archetypes give you a 15th level ability. It just seems like that's the playing field for the ranger. They get their final thing at level 15. 15th level, when you take damage, you can use a reaction to give yourself resistance to all of that attack's damage on this turn. So essentially, 15th level, you take damage as a reaction, gain resistance to that damage. So you're gonna be staying in the fight a lot longer between Spectral Defense and Ethereal Step.
Yeah, and if your job as the ranger is to do a lot more damage than it is to be someone who's soaking blows, getting the ability to not only do damage but take that extra blow is really good. And it's not even a one-time use, it's every time you get resistance for that. So as long as you can take a reaction, you can take...
Yeah, exactly. There's no like short or long rest recharge.
Yeah. Some of these had short or long rest recharges, but this one doesn't. Last one was the Monster Slayer. I really, really liked it. Only if you play a lot of evil wizards as your monster minds, your DM plays them. Because they thematically seem like someone who is, like Van Helsing is who I think of.
Yeah, I like it as like a supernatural hunter type. Like, it specifies that they seek out specifically magical threats.
Yeah.
And its abilities really reflect that, yes.
Yeah, so at 3rd level, they get their own unique spell book. Protection from Good and Evil, Zone of Truth, Magic Circle, Banishment, and Hold Monster. So again, all things that you as a monster hunter are going to go and need in your journeys. But then they also get Hunter's Sense, which is a 60 foot like magical aura you can put on someone to see.
It's a divination.
To see how best you can hurt them. So it's like, I could go on some stuff where it reminds me of, but it just reminds me of, someone who is like the old Deadshot, who could like spend 3 turns just analyzing their person, and then just do like a coup de grace on them. So as long as your party could hold on fighting that dragon for 3 turns, and like I think this was in 3 or 3-5, and then they could just like shoot and do a coup de grace.
Yeah, it's anything that got like a studied target or anything.
Yeah.
I think that the assassin would do things like that.
That's probably what I was thinking.
I know there's in Pathfinder there's a red mantis assassin that can like fascinate for a few rounds and then basically behead somebody, but
that's rude.
yeah, not as good as that, but you learn in game. You learn their damage, immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. So you just study them, you divine on them, and you learn a way to better defeat them.
Yep, and you can use that a number of times with your wisdom modifier. So again, as Brandon said earlier, these three classes, they're really more balanced. You know, you're going to want to put your points into wisdom to really utilize these three.
Slayer's Prey, sorry. You focus your ire on one foe. So all of these give you some type of a little damage boost. And Slayer's Prey is the damage boost that this one gets. And the first time each turn you hit your focused target, you deal an additional d6 damage with your weapon. Benefit lasts until you finish a short or long rest, and it ends early if you designate a different creature. So you can keep it on one creature all day if you want to, otherwise you can just say, nope, you, no, you're who I'm going to get now. So you can kind of keep shifting it around and always get that d6 damage boost, which is nice.
You're right. And then their supernatural defense just gives them like protection against like grappling or anytime you need to take a saving throw against your Slayer's Prey mark. It just gives you an extra d6 to your roll. So all in all, that's an extra like fourth of your d20 roll. So it's pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. Magic User's Nemesis sort of allows you to magically thwart other people's magic attempts, which is pretty cool. I mean, you don't really think about a ranger as being like a counter spell type class, but this one might give you the opportunity to be better at it than the wizard is in your party in some instances. You have to be within 60 feet. When you see a creature casting a spell or teleporting, the creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC, or its spell or teleport fails and is wasted. So not only does it fail, but the slot is gone. Another reason you're going to want some wisdom, jack your DC up, and be the magic user's nemesis.
Yeah, the when I read that, it really reminded me of like the magic counter spell, to where you're like, nope, I counter that. Mm-hmm. And like I know there, the bard gets it, the wizard gets it, and everything like that. But like to have that extra utility from your ranger to just be able to be like, hey, our half martial, half wisdom class can now counter spell stuff. Oh man, that's just good.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty much you can do it once a day or once per rest, but still you save it for when the fighter's down to a knee and about to get fireballed. Like, it's a combat saver, really.
Yeah, and like, you never know when you're, wizards are explosive, but they're also fragile, so you never know when they're going to go down. You can't always count on them to be your anti-magic user. So just having a everyday guy being able to say, oh no, not today. I think that's one of the cooler abilities about the Monster Slayer.
Yeah. Slayer's Counter is its 15th level ability. It gives you like a counter attack. Target of your Slayer's Prey forces you to make a saving throw. You can use your reaction to make one weapon attack against the quarry. It's not great for 15th level ability. Especially if for someone who's going to be ideally pairing themselves up against spellcasters, and if you have a melee weapon, you're not always going to be able to take that attack if you're not within range to make the weapon attack.
Well, what it is it's not necessarily a weapon attack. It's when they force you to make a saving throw.
Right.
So if you get to make that attack before they make the saving throw, and if you succeed on your attack, you automatically succeed the saving throw. So it's kind of like that wizard is trying to cast like mind control or whatever, some big thing. You
Yeah.
say nope, and you hit them. And again, these guys are like wizard hunters, so if they hit that wizard, which isn't that, it's not easy to do, but it's not like impossible to do. So
it's relatively easy.
So like it's almost like a free success considering the way you're making it.
Right.
So
I'm just thinking of if you are down on the ground, a wizard's flying above you, throws Dominate Person at you, and you have a sword.
Yeah, throw it at
him. You can't make use of it. It's great if you have a bow, because you can use your bow to like interrupt attacks and stuff. Maybe the Archer Ranger is the better way to do the Monster Slayer. Something to keep in mind.
The picture does depict them with a crossbow.
Don't use a crossbow though. I mean,
don't be that guy.
5e does a better job with crossbow. That's a talk for a different time. Overall, I really like the Ranger. The Ranger is seen as like the weakest class by far in the player's handbook. It sees the least amount of play, and there was even a survey done that people say that it is the weakest class. I think that these, with like the extra spells and then the extra damage boost and stuff, gives it sort of levels the playing field with it a little bit. I still hope that we see the revised Ranger from Unearthed Arcana come out sooner than later. I was really surprised not to see it in Xanathar's because it received a lot of praise.
One thing, not only the damage output for the Ranger, but they also get like a plethora of attacks. Like they really tried to give them what they needed, because as Brandon said, they were pretty lacking in BH1.
Yeah. The revised Ranger is good, but these three archetypes make the just core Ranger a lot more playable.
Yeah. So that was our opinions on Xanathar, guys. Everything discussing the Ranger.
That was a long one. We had a lot to say about the Ranger.
Yeah, the Ranger's cool. I like the Ranger.
Me too.
That was actually, I think, one of my first classes as playing D&D was.
I think most people play the Ranger first because you have Legolas, you have Aragorn,
right?
You have Dritz. There's a lot of iconic Rangers out there.
So it's nice to see that they're giving them that. They're pulling in more of an audience for new players with these classes, because when if a new player comes in and they're like, hey, this Ranger thing sounds cool, and your DM says, well, they're the worst class in the game, you're not going to want to play that.
Exactly.
So anyway, sidetracked. Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Dudes of Divination. Please like and subscribe below. We'll see you next time.